Look at her, wearing that to the Bennett charity gala. Someone needs to tell her this isn't a Walmart shopping trip. The laughter echoed through the marble ballroom of the Fontainebleau Miami Beach. Crystal chandeliers cast light on designer gowns and tuxedos, and one woman in a simple sundress from Target, standing frozen by the champagne table. Natasha Hayes felt every eye in the room turned toward her. The woman who'd spoken, dripping in diamonds, face lifted within an inch of its life, smirked from across the room, surrounded by Miami's elite socialites who titter behind their hands. I mean, I know Colton married down, but this is embarrassing. Does she even know what black tie means? Natasha's hands trembled around her champagne flute. She looked desperately toward her husband, Colton Hayes, tech billionaire, owner of Hayes Digital Empire, the man worth $3.2 billion, according to last month's Forbes. He stood 30 feet away, surrounded by investors and board members, deep in conversation about the upcoming merger. He'd heard the comment. She knew he had. Everyone had. But Colton didn't move, didn't defend her, didn't even glance her way. Just kept talking business like his wife wasn't being publicly humiliated at his company's charity event. Before this goes any further, if you've ever believed in taking a chance on someone, in choosing hard over comfort, please stay with us. Subscribing, liking, or sharing this story isn't about supporting a channel. It's about standing behind stories that remind us who we are. If that matters to you, even a little, stay. Honestly, the socialite continued, emboldened by Colton's silence. Someone should have scored her out. She's bringing down the whole aesthetic. This is a $10,000, a plate event, not a neighborhood barbecue. More laughter. Natasha felt tears burning her eyes. She set down her champagne and walked, fast, fighting to keep her composure, toward the exit, past the smirking faces, past the people recording on their phones, past her husband, who still didn't look at her. What nobody in that ballroom knew, what they couldn't possibly know, was that Colton Hayes had orchestrated the entire thing, had specifically chosen that venue, invited those specific people, told his wife to wear exactly that dress. And in exactly 3 minutes, when Natasha reached the lobby, everything those socialites thought they knew about the world was about to come crashing down. Because sometimes the most powerful move isn't offending your queen. It's letting them think they've won before you flip the entire board. Natasha Torres was having the worst day of her life when she met Colton Hayes. Her car had died on I-95 in Miami traffic. Her phone battery was at 2%. She'd been fired that morning from her marketing job because the company was restructuring, code for the boss's nephew needed her position. And now she was standing in the Publix on Brickell Avenue at 3 p.m. on a Tuesday, using her last $40 to buy groceries, when she realized she'd forgotten her reusable bags. Paper or plastic? The cashier asked. Paper, please. I'm trying to be... Natasha stopped mid-sentence as her debit card declined. What? No, that can't be right. Can you try again? Same result. The line behind her was growing. People were sighing. The cashier looked uncomfortable. Ma'am, do you have another form of payment? Natasha fumbled through her wallet. She had $6.23 in cash. Her groceries totaled $43.67. I need to put some things back. I'm sorry. Let me just... I've got it. A man stepped forward from behind her in line. Tall, dark hair, kind eyes, wearing jeans and a simple t-shirt. He handed the cashier a credit card before Natasha could protest. You don't have to. I know, but you look like you're having a rough day. Let someone help. Natasha's pride war with her desperation. Desperation won. Thank you. Really, I'll pay you back. Don't worry about it. He smiled. I'm Colton. Natasha, and thank you. Seriously. Today has been... She stopped, embarrassed. I don't usually fall apart in grocery stores. Everyone falls apart somewhere. Grocery stores are actually pretty dignified compared to some places. She laughed despite herself. They walked out together, Natasha carrying her paper bags, feeling pathetic and grateful and oddly comfortable with the stranger. "Can I buy you coffee?" Colton asked, "as payment for letting me feel like a decent human being today?" "You just paid for my groceries. I think I owe you coffee." "Then let's call it even and just have coffee." They went to a small Cuban cafe around the corner, talked for 2 hours. Natasha learned that Colton worked in tech. He didn't mention he owned the company, that he'd grown up in Austin but moved to Miami for business, that he was tired of the superficiality of the dating scene and the people who only saw dollar signs. She told him about her recent firing, about her family in Nicaragua she sent money to every month, about her dreams of starting her own marketing firm someday, when she had the capital and confidence. "You'll do it," Colton said with certainty. "I can tell. You've got that look." "What look?" "The one that says you've been knocked down before and always gotten back up. That's the look of someone who succeeds eventually." When they finally parted, Colton insisting on making sure her groceries got home safely by calling her an Uber. She initially refused. Natasha felt something she hadn't felt in months. Hope. And Colton? Colton felt something he'd never felt in his 38 years of wealth and success. Connection with someone who had no idea who he was. Colton called 3 days later, asked her to dinner. Natasha said yes, then immediately panicked about what to wear on a date with a man who'd casually dropped $50 on a stranger's groceries without blinking. She chose a simple dress from Target, $24.99, the best she could afford. Colton picked her up in a regular Honda Civic, his assistant's car. His McLaren stayed in the garage. Took her to a local taco truck in Wynwood, not a fancy restaurant. "This okay?" he asked. "I figured after the day you had, you probably want to dress up." "This is perfect." They ate tacos sitting on the curb, watching street artists paint murals. Talked about everything, their families, their dreams, their fears. Natasha told him about her mother's cancer treatment back in Nicaragua, the bills that never seemed to stop coming. Colton told her about feeling lonely despite being surrounded by people, about not being sure who actually cared about him versus what he could do for them. "That sounds exhausting," Natasha said. "It is. That's why this," he gestured between them, "this feels different, better, real." Over the next 4 months, they fell in love. Colton kept his wealth hidden, took her to normal places, drove normal cars, let her believe he was just a comfortable tech guy, not a billionaire. Not because he was testing her, though some would later accuse him of that, but because he wanted to live in the bubble of being normal for as long as possible. Natasha made him laugh, challenged him, didn't care that he showed up in jeans and T-shirts, loved him for his weird sense of humor and the way he listened when she talked about her dreams. And Colton? Colton finally felt seen as just a person, not a bank account. For months in, he asked her to marry him. They were at the beach in Key Biscayne, watching the sunset. No fancy ring yet. Just him, kneeling in the sand, asking if she'd take a chance on him. "I need to tell you something first," he said. "Okay." "I'm not just comfortable. I'm very successful. Like, Forbes list successful. And I didn't tell you because I wanted you to know me first. Just me, before the money complicated everything." Natasha stared at him. "How successful?" "Billionaire successful. I own Hayes' digital empire, worth about $3 billion. She laughed, then stopped when she realized he wasn't joking. "You're serious." "Completely. And I know this changes things." "It doesn't change how I feel about you." "But Colton," her voice got small, "I don't fit in that world. I'm a girl from Nicaragua who shops at Publix and wears Target dresses. Your world has galas and society people, and none of that matters. You matter. This matters." He squeezed her hand. "Will you marry me, Natasha? And let me spend the rest of my life proving that you're the only real thing in my world?" She said yes through tears. They got married at the courthouse 2 weeks later. Small, simple, just them and two witnesses. No media, no society wedding, just love. And for 6 months, they were blissfully happy in their bubble. Until Colton's board insisted he attend the annual Bennett Foundation Gala, the biggest charity event of the Miami social season, and bring his new wife. Sometimes the cruelest thing about love is watching the person you care about step into a world that was never designed for them. Sometimes marrying someone means asking them to be strong in ways they never imagined they'd have to be. If you ever felt like an outsider in a space where everyone else belonged, if you've ever wondered whether love is enough to bridge the gap between two different worlds, then maybe you understand why Natasha agreed to go to that gala, even though every instinct told her it would be a disaster. Why some promises we make to the people we love require more courage than we knew we had. Wear this. Colton handed Natasha a simple sundress the morning of the gala. Target brand. $29.99. Exactly the kind of thing she'd wear on a normal day. Colton, the invitation said black tie. This is perfect. Trust me. But everyone else will be in designer gowns. I'll look ridiculous. You look like yourself. That's all that matters. He kissed her forehead. Trust me, Natasha. Please. She didn't understand, but she trusted him. So that evening, while Colton wore a perfectly tailored tuxedo, Natasha wore a Target sundress to the most exclusive event in Miami. The moment they walked into the Fontainebleau ballroom, she felt it. The stares, the whispers, the barely concealed shock on every perfectly made-up face. Colton, she whispered, panic rising. Everyone's looking at me. I know. Why didn't you tell me to dress up? Why didn't you? Because I need you to trust me. Can you do that? She didn't answer, because trusting him right now felt impossible when every person in this room was looking at her like she was trash that had wandered in off the street. Then Victoria Ashford, Miami's reigning socialite, married old money, the woman who decided who was in and who was out, spotted them. Colton, darling. She air-kissed his cheeks, then turned to Natasha with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. And you must be the new wife. How charming. Natasha, this is Victoria Ashford. Nice to meet you, Natasha managed. Victoria looked her up and down. Is that Target? How delightfully authentic. Most of us just donate our old clothes to places like that, but wearing them, revolutionary. The women around Victoria laughed. Polite, cutting laughter. Colton said nothing. Excuse me, Natasha mumbled. I need some champagne. She walked away, fighting tears, feeling Colton's eyes on her back, but not his defense. That's when Victoria really started. Natasha stood by the champagne table, trying to calm her breathing, when she heard Victoria's voice carry across the ballroom. Look at her, wearing that to the Bennett Charity Gala. Someone needs to tell her this isn't a Walmart shopping trip. Every word was a knife. Every laugh from Victoria's circle twisted it deeper. I mean, I know Colton married down, but this is embarrassing. Does she even know what black tie means? Natasha glanced at Colton, 30 feet away, definitely within earshot. He didn't move, didn't defend her, just kept talking to his investors like nothing was happening. Why isn't he saying anything? Why isn't he? Honestly, someone should escort her out. She's bringing down the whole aesthetic. This is a $10,000 A-plate event, not a neighborhood barbecue. More phones came out. People were recording. This would be all over social media by morning. Billionaire's trashy wife would trend on Twitter. Natasha couldn't take it anymore. She set down her champagne and walked toward the exit, past the smirking faces, past the cameras, past her husband who still didn't acknowledge her. The tears came as she reached the lobby. Fast, humiliating. A man in a hotel uniform approached. Mrs. Hayes, if you'll follow me, please. Your husband asked me to escort you to the signature penthouse. What? This way, ma'am. Confused, devastated, Natasha followed him to the private elevator, up to the top floor, into a penthouse suite overlooking the Miami beach. On the table, a dozen red roses, a note in Colton's handwriting. Wait here. Watch the live stream on the TV. I love you. Trust me. See, the TV was already on. Live coverage of the Bennett Foundation Gala. The camera showed Colton at the podium, the entire ballroom watching. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for coming tonight. Before we begin the auction, I have an announcement. Colton stood at the podium, looking out at Miami's elite society, at Victoria Ashford, smug and satisfied in the front row, at the people who'd laughed at his wife. Some of you may have noticed my wife tonight, Natasha Hayes, beautiful woman in the Target sundress who left about 10 minutes ago. Nervous laughter rippled through the crowd. I asked her to wear that dress, specifically because I wanted to conduct an experiment. The room went quiet. See, I've been in your world for 15 years, and in that time, I've watched how you treat people, how you decide who matters based on what they wear, what they drive, where they came from. I've watched you donate millions to charity while treating service workers like they're invisible. I've watched you preach kindness while destroying people with whispers and laughter. Victoria's face had gone pale. Tonight, you humiliated my wife, the woman I love, the kindest, most genuine person I've ever met. You mocked her dress, called her trashy, suggested she didn't belong here. Colton pulled out his phone. What you don't know is that for the past 6 months, I've been documenting every interaction with the social circle, every racist comment disguised as a joke, every cruel dismissal of people you consider beneath you, every time you've shown your true character when you thought no one was paying attention. He pressed a button. The screens around the ballroom lit up with videos. Victoria making a racist comment about the hotel staff. Another socialite laughing about those people who shop at discount stores. A board member mocking a server's accent. Hours of footage. Damning. Undeniable. This footage, Colton continued, voice like ice, will be released to every major news outlet tomorrow morning. Unless... The room held its breath. Unless you all write checks. Right now. To the Bennett Foundation. Not your usual tax-deductible donations. Real money. Money that hurts. And then you're going to volunteer. Actually volunteer. At homeless shelters. Food banks. Places where the people you mock actually struggle to survive. You can't blackmail us, someone shouted. I'm not blackmailing you. I'm giving you a choice. Become better humans. Or become famous for being exactly who you really are. The footage is already uploaded. My assistant has instructions to release it unless I personally call him in the next hour to stop it. Colton stepped down from the podium, started walking toward the exit. Oh, and Victoria, I'm pulling Hayes' digital empire sponsorship from every charity you chair. That's $12 million annually. I'll be redirecting those funds to organizations that actually help people instead of just hosting parties where you can network. He paused at the door. My wife is worth 1,000 of you. And tonight you proved it. Good night. He left the ballroom in chaos. Sometimes justice isn't about fighting back in the moment. Sometimes it's about being strategic, patient, letting people show you exactly who they are before you show them the consequences. Maybe that's what power really means. Not the ability to defend in real time, but the wisdom to plan something bigger. If you've ever wanted to stand up for someone who couldn't stand up for themselves, if you've ever watched someone be cruel and wish you could make them understand the weight of their words, then maybe you understand why Colton let them humiliate Natasha before revealing his hand. Why some battles are won by thinking 3 moves ahead. Natasha had watched the entire thing on the penthouse TV. Watched her husband dismantle Miami's elite with surgical precision. Watched him defend her in a way that would actually change things, not just make her feel better in the moment. When Colton walked through the penthouse door, she was crying. I'm sorry, he said immediately. I'm so sorry for letting them hurt you. I know it was awful. Why didn't you tell me? She wasn't angry, just overwhelmed. Because I needed your reaction to be genuine. I needed them to see someone real, someone kind, someone they could hurt. So when I showed them what they'd done, they couldn't claim it was staged. You used me? Yes. He didn't deny it. And I hate that I did. But Natasha, you asked me once how we could change a system built on cruelty. This is how. By exposing it. By forcing them to face what they've become. You should have warned me. You're right. I should have. And I'm sorry. But he pulled out his phone, showed her the screen. Every single person in that ballroom has donated. In the last 20 minutes, the Bennett Foundation received $47 million. That's more than they've raised in the past 5 years combined. Because I gave them a choice, be generous or be exposed. Natasha looked at the numbers, then at her husband. You did this for them? The charities? I did this for you. And for every person who's ever been made to feel less than because they didn't have money or connections or the right last name. He took her hands. I married you because you're real. Because you have a heart those people can't even imagine. And I wanted them to see what they've been missing, what their cruelty destroys. They destroyed me tonight. I know, and I will spend the rest of my life making that up to you. But Natasha, his voice cracked. They also revealed themselves. And tomorrow, when that footage goes public, every charity, every business, every person who's ever been hurt by that social circle will finally see them for what they are. You're really releasing it? Unless they follow through on the donations, the volunteering, the actual change. He smiled slightly. I'm giving them a chance to be better. That's more than they gave you. Natasha was quiet for a long moment. Then, I love you, but if you ever use me as bait again without telling me, I'm moving back to Nicaragua, and you can visit on holidays. Deal. He pulled her close. I love you. I'm sorry. And I promise, no more schemes involving public humiliation. Good. Because I'm returning this Target dress and buying something from Nordstrom with your credit card. Whatever you want. A whole new wardrobe. Done. And a car. Mine died 6 months ago, remember? I'll buy you a dealership. She laughed through tears. I just want a Honda. The most expensive Honda ever made. Got it. The next morning, every news outlet in Miami covered the story. Tech billionaire exposes Miami elite's ugly side. Hidden camera footage reveals Charity Circuit's dark truth. Hayes' digital empire pulls millions in funding after wife's public humiliation. Victoria Ashford issued a public apology. So did dozens of others. Some sincere, most performative. But Colton had anticipated that. Had contracts drawn up requiring proof of volunteer hours. Regular donations. Actual change, not just PR statements. Some people followed through. Genuinely tried to be better. Some were exposed and the footage was released anyway. Colton had never planned to bury it all. Just the worst offenders got chances at redemption. Miami's social hierarchy imploded. Old money families suddenly found themselves excluded from events they controlled for decades. New voices, diverse, genuine, from actual community leaders, filled the vacuum. And Natasha became the unexpected face of authenticity in a world built on pretense. She launched her marketing firm 6 months later, Hayes and Associates, focused on helping small businesses and nonprofits tell their stories. Colton provided initial capital, but she built it into a $10 million company on her own merit. Women who'd been excluded from Miami's elite circles found community with her. People who'd felt like outsiders finally had a champion. And Victoria Ashford? She actually followed through on her volunteering. Started small. A few hours at a homeless shelter. Then more. Then regular shifts. One day, 8 months after the gala, Natasha ran into her at Publix on Brick Hill, the same store where she'd met Colton. Natasha, Victoria's voice was different, quieter. Can we talk? They got coffee at the same Cuban cafe. Victoria looked tired but more real than Natasha had ever seen her. "I'm sorry," Victoria said, "for everything, for how I treated you, for how I treated everyone. I didn't realize—" She stopped. "No, that's a lie. I did realize. I just didn't care. Because I was surrounded by people who validated my cruelty and called it sophistication. Why are you telling me this? Because I've spent 8 months volunteering at shelters, meeting people, real people with real struggles. And I finally understand what your husband was trying to show us, that we were monsters, well-dressed, well-connected monsters, but monsters nonetheless." Natasha studied her. "What do you want? Forgiveness?" "No, I don't deserve that. I just wanted you to know that what you and Colton did, it mattered. It changed things. Changed me." Victoria smiled sadly. "You wore a Target dress and showed us we had no clothes. That takes courage. I didn't mean to." "I know. That's what made it powerful." The Whole Foods on West Avenue in Austin, Texas. Natasha and Colton had relocated there after expanding Hayes and Associates nationwide. They kept the Miami office, but Austin felt more like home. They were grocery shopping on a Saturday morning, something they did together every week, refusing to lose the normalcy that had brought them together, when a young woman approached. "Excuse me? Are you Natasha Hayes?" "Yes." "I just want to say thank you. I saw your TED talk about authenticity and business, about how being yourself is more valuable than fitting into someone else's mold. It changed my life. I quit my corporate job and started my own company. We're 3 years in and finally profitable." "That's amazing. What's your company?" They talked for 20 minutes. Colton watched his wife light up, sharing advice, genuinely invested in this stranger's success. This was who she'd always been. The gala hadn't changed her, had just revealed her to the world. Later, at home in their Austin house, modest by billionaire standards, they refused to buy a mansion. Natasha asked, "Do you ever regret it? The gala? Everything that came after?" "Never. Do you?" "Sometimes I wish you'd warned me. But no, not really." She smiled. "We changed things. Made the world a tiny bit better. You made the world better. I just provided the platform. We're a team. Best team ever created." They fell asleep that night on their couch, watching TV, Natasha's Target dress, the famous one from the gala, which she kept, hanging framed on the wall as a reminder, not of humiliation, of revolution, of the night one woman in a $29.99 dress exposed an entire system built on cruelty and forced them to be better. 5 years after the gala, Natasha Hayes gave a commencement speech at the University of Miami. "When I was 27, I stood in a Publix with $6 in my pocket and no idea how I'd make it through the week. A stranger paid for my groceries. That stranger became my husband. And 6 months later, he asked me to wear a Target dress to the most exclusive event in Miami." She paused, let the laughter ripple through the crowd. "I was humiliated that night, mocked, laughed at. My husband stood 30 feet away and didn't defend me. And for a few minutes, I hated him for it. But what I didn't know was that he was playing chess while everyone else was playing checkers. He let them show their true selves so he could show them the consequences. And in doing so, he gave me something more valuable than a defense in the moment. He gave me a platform. That Target dress became a symbol of authenticity over pretense, of substance over style, of being yourself in a world that demands you be someone else. And here's what I want you to know, graduates. The world will try to humiliate you, will tell you you're not enough, not rich enough, not polished enough, not connected enough. And in those moments, you have a choice. You can change yourself to fit their world, or you can stay yourself and change the world to fit you. I chose the second option, and it's been harder, scarier, but infinitely more meaningful. So wear your metaphorical Target dress. Be authentically, unapologetically yourself. And when people laugh, remember, they're not laughing at you. They're laughing at their own fear of being real. The standing ovation lasted 5 minutes. After the ceremony, Colton found her backstage. "I'm proud of you," he said. "I'm proud of us. We did something impossible. We made people care about being better. Some people, not everyone. Some is enough. Some is how you change the world. One person at a time." He kissed her. "Want to go get groceries?" "At Publix." "Where else?" They drove to the same Publix on Brick Hill where they'd met, walked the same aisles. Natasha grabbed a basket even though they didn't need much. At the checkout, a young woman's card declined. She looked mortified, started putting items back. Natasha pulled out her credit card. "I've got it." "You don't have to." "I know, but someone did this for me once. Changed my life. Let me pay it forward." The woman's eyes filled with tears. "Thank you. I'll pay you back." "Don't pay me back. Just help someone else when you can. That's how we change things. One grocery cart at a time." Sometimes the greatest power we have isn't money or influence. It's the choice to stay authentically ourselves even when the world demands we be someone else. Sometimes revolution starts with a Target dress and a refusal to apologize for not fitting in. Maybe that's what this story is really about. Not revenge or justice, though those mattered, but the courage to be real in a world built on pretense. If this reminded you that you're enough exactly as you are, that fitting in is overrated, that the people who mock you for being yourself are usually just terrified of being real themselves, then maybe you understand why Natasha's story resonated with millions. Why authenticity, even when it's humiliating, is always more powerful than pretense. 10 years after the gala, the Hayes Foundation had donated $500 million to causes supporting women entrepreneurs, immigrant communities, and education access. Every grant application asks one question: tell us about a time you stayed authentic even when it was difficult. Because Colton and Natasha had learned that the people who built real, lasting change weren't the ones with perfect pedigrees. They were the ones brave enough to show up as themselves, even in Target dresses, especially in Target dresses. If this story touched you in any way, if it made you feel something, pause for a moment, or see life a little differently, please don't let it end here. These stories take heart, time, and care to create, and your support is what keeps them alive. Subscribing, liking, or sharing isn't just a click. It's a quiet way of saying this mattered. If you believe stories like this deserve to be told, please stay with us.